The process of building a massive modern hotel from the ground up creates an environment of rapidly escalating financial complexity. Maintaining fiscal control during this chaotic launch window relies entirely on the capability and structure of the early finance team. Operational departments like housekeeping or food and beverage scale linearly, growing their staff counts as the property nears completion. Pre-opening finance requires a different structural logic. This graph compares the two models over time. While operations staff follow a gradual curve, finance recruitment is steeply front-loaded, peaking far ahead of the operational needs of the hotel. Pre-opening finance functions as a structural build, ensuring the systems exist and are tested before the high-volume transaction period begins. To sequence this build, we use the months prior to opening timeline, or MPOT. This timeline forms the axis for our organizational structure, anchored by the Director of Finance. The director's primary human capital task is ensuring the precise financial skills are recruited to hit the milestones mapped on the MPOT. Ownership groups often attempt to limit early payroll costs by delegating foundational work to external consultants. Delegating financial architecture to outsiders creates a knowledge gap. When the consultancy contract ends, the understanding of the system's specific logic and internal controls leaves with them. Building an in-house core team early secures the institutional memory required for long-term fiscal stability. The finance organizational chart must accommodate two distinct phases: the initial project build-out and the eventual transition to daily operations. On the MPOT timeline, the first organizational tier branches off from the Director of Finance with the hire of the Chief Accountant or Financial Controller. They are responsible for setting up the general ledger before the first complex transactions occur. This role configures the chart of accounts, ensuring every dollar of capital deployment is categorized correctly from the very first purchase order. They must also establish the internal control framework, defining every approval hierarchy and spending limit for the project. The chief accountant builds the digital vault where the property's money will eventually be tracked. Once the digital framework is built, focus shifts to the physical assets. A pre-opening hotel requires millions of dollars in procurement, moving at high volume and velocity. This necessitates the hire of the pre-opening purchasing manager. They track two distinct categories: operating supplies and equipment, or OS&E, and furniture, fixtures, and equipment, known as FF&D. They manage this influx through the three-way match standard operating procedure, verifying that every purchase order matches the receiving report and the supplier invoice. Enforcing the three-way match from day one allows the property to track the millions of dollars in inbound physical assets that arrive during construction. After capital and physical assets are secured, the team must expand to manage the human capital infrastructure. This involves the hire of the payroll specialist. Their immediate priority is configuring the Human Resources Information System, or HRIS. They ensure the system maintains absolute compliance with local labor laws long before the mass hiring phase begins. This work culminates in a specific early milestone: processing the very first executive team payroll. A fully operational payroll and HRIS architecture must be in place before the other executive departments scale up their staffing. Early recruitment fails without an intensive onboarding process focused on project knowledge. On the MPO timeline, all finance hiring deadlines are dictated by the major funding drawdowns. The core finance team must be fully integrated before this threshold is crossed to ensure the proper management of released capital. During a major drawdown, capital arrives as a massive, sudden surge that demands immediate routing, tracking, and compliance. Successful onboarding requires the team to absorb the property's specific institutional knowledge, including its ownership structure and legal requirements. They must master the hotel's specific financial systems architecture before the first live transactions occur. This institutional knowledge acts as a firewall. Without it, the surge of funding drawdowns will overwhelm an unonboarded team. A structured and onboarded core finance team is responsible for producing several tangible deliverables. The first is the finalization of the pre-opening budget, or POB. The second is the establishment and verification of all operational bank accounts. The third is the development of the core standard operating procedure manuals for their respective functions. These three outputs establish the foundation that allows the rest of the hotel launch to proceed safely. These deliverables are strictly dependent on the early hiring sequence. Delaying the recruitment of the core team forces these outputs to fail. Strategic early investment in the core finance team ensures these outputs are generated in time to support the hotel's launch. This principle is a fundamental teaching within the human capital management programs at the Europe Hotel School in London. The school's core tenet frames human capital in pre-opening finance as a critical risk mitigation strategy. The final months before opening are chaotic. In an environment of stretching budgets and compressed timelines, these early hires provide the necessary structural stability. A fully staffed and rigorously trained finance team is the only true guarantee of fiscal control during the chaotic final months before opening.